and gets more people back into their regular lives.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise in the House today to speak about this third wave and the response to COVID-19. And I really wish that I didn't have to rise. I really wish I did not have to rise today to speak about this. Because I've seen the plight that this pandemic has hit people with. People are at home, people are frustrated, businesses are closing, they want to get back to work, and they're absolutely frustrated with a lack of strategy. You know, there's dozens of countries have recently announced opening up their borders to the United States. It's a country that early on in this, that the Prime Minister criticized for their response to this pandemic. You know, as I speak to this motion today, Australia last week hosted the largest sporting event since the beginning of the pandemic last March. Well, what's going on in Canada? In parts of the country, we still can't have even more than 5 people to an outdoor gathering. This is just not acceptable. Canada has fully vaccinated just 3%, just under 3% of its population. Now, it's a low figure, and it's also explained that we've been spreading out the shots going off-label. Only 30%, the 30% that the government has been bragging about has only had 1 shot. So we're certainly behind when we try to measure against other countries, and we should be doing better. In the United States, we're seeing cases and hospitalizations dropping. You see businesses open, you see restaurants are getting busy, fans are returning to watch their favorite sports, and Canadians are seeing this happen. And they're seeing the lack of response in our country and us falling behind. Now, the U.S. is able to do this because our population is getting vaccinated. So this is a sorry state of affairs. And I often think about, what is the rest of the world saying to themselves? What on earth happened to Canada? You know, we used to be known for, if nothing else, our kindness, our love of hockey, our great healthcare system. Those were things that we should be proud of and we were known for. But now we've positioned ourselves where people are looking at us to say, what happened to Canada? Why are we so far behind? Why is it that we're continuing to add to lockdowns as the variants come? It's because of a lack of vaccines. You know, the exodus of small businesses, it just breaks my heart. When we talk about essential, who's essential to the economy? Well, think about the mom and pop operators who their business is defines them. It's very much who they are. It's essential to them. 220,000 have closed since January this year. Another ugly stat, we hold the highest unemployment rate in the G7. This just shouldn't be happening in Canada. And the worst part of all this is, rather than show us that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which I guess is September, and showing us that we can get our life back to normal like the rest of the world, the government is providing measures to help people, but unfortunately it's to keep them inside because we can't get enough vaccines or enough testing in this country to get people back to work. And that's what it's all about after all. I think it's a question of when rather there'll be another global pandemic. And will the government next go around say, lockdown, that's what we've got to do? So could we not be better prepared? Could governments not give Canadians better confidence that we're better prepared? And we should have learned from SARS and other pandemics and been better prepared. And certainly we had some of that. We had PPE that was sitting in warehouses that was actually sent to a dump. We sent PPE to another country early on, and we had a shortfall. That's not planning. That's not being ready. That's not having a strategy. So the reality of this situation is that investment in healthcare and manufacturing capacity, it just can't be a one-time deal. You know, if you look at, take AstraZeneca. where it's been reported that we're paying significantly more than other countries. And we don't have the manufacturing capacity here in Canada to produce it. You know what, I would not really care about what the dollar value that we're paying is if we were getting delivery, if we were ahead of the game, if we were demonstrated that we paid more and we were getting better results. And when we measure ourselves against other countries, that's not the case. The evidence is there. Look at Israel. Look what they were able to do without manufacturing capacity. Where's our government and where were they negotiating early on? You know, we've demonstrated as a country, and particularly within North America, when we've worked with our partners, that we've overcome extraordinary issues. You think of the NORAD, on how that was established with great cooperation between our two great countries. Where were we early on to be with our American partners and determine how do we protect North America and how do we have a strategy that works for both of us? Where were we? So even if we can get our manufacturing squared up in Canada, we can't just rely on ourselves. We've got to be part of a strategic initiative with other countries and industry. You know, after a slow start, Pfizer, its partner, BioNTech, Moderna, they raised the game, they raised their output, gaining experience, scaling up production, and taking up steps like certain raw materials, producing them on their own. And the USA got in front of this, and they leveraged businesses and public sector to step in. We have enormous talent in this country. We should have reached out. We should have, as they did in the US and as they did in the UK, look for solutions early on. We have the talent in this country to do it, and it was sadly missed by this government either ignoring or being slow to recognize it. The US government has developed the Vaccine Makers Access Supplies under the Defense Production Act. That act provided $105 million funding to help Merck make doses of JJ, COVID-19 vaccine, and expedite materials to be used in its production. So they got in front of it. You know, there will be no economic recovery in its entirety without a health recovery. And we need a line of sight. We need some measurables. We need to be able to understand where are we going, what is the plan. That's what this motion's about. You know, you can criticize whether we can get there by May, but that's some of the frustration of Canadians. There is no plan. We need to see this government move forward and set targets, measure them against other jurisdictions, and demonstrate to Canadians that they're on top of this. We needed leadership on rapid procurement. We didn't see leadership on it. Saying that you've written POs and you have the biggest procurement strategy and the most POs out there hasn't resulted in vaccines in the arms of Canadians. And we should be ashamed that we're not be able to execute better on that. There's a lack of leadership on manufacturing. I do recognize the government is now showing interest in this, and they're starting to put some time, money, and effort into this area, which has been needed. And congratulations on that, albeit late. I mentioned collaboration with the US. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to work with our partners because we're such an integrated economy. Bringing experts together to make sure that we could get this right, if we didn't learn that from before, we should know it now. So I encourage this government to bring those experts together and make sure that we're reacting to this better and properly preparing for the future. So it's been a year. We're still behind on testing, and while the rest of the world is sped ahead, there's virtually no talk about the border reopening at this point. It doesn't even hit the headlines when the border closure between the US and Canada is extended. Overall, there's been a gross lack of leadership. And Madam Speaker, at the end of the day, people are frustrated. They want to get back to work. They don't want to operate in bubbles anymore. Enough is enough. Let's show some leadership. The people I represent in the great riding of Edmonton Centre demand more of us. Let's get a plan and get people back to work. Thank you.